Welcome to the TheMediaWard podcast. Sometimes I find topics that I want to share with you, but they don't quite have enough depth to fill an entire episode. So instead of abandoning these ideas, I save them up until I have a few that share similar themes, and that is exactly what I've done for today's podcast. Technology is forever finding its way into new parts of our lives, and whilst this brings with it significant benefits, it also brings concerns of security and privacy. Today we examine a few such concerns. Nowadays you can replace a dizzying array of household items with smart devices, from thermostats and light bulbs you can activate from your bed or on your way home from work, to smart fridges that order milk when you're running low, or electronic locks that you can operate with your phone in person or from thousands of miles away. These devices connect to the internet, and you generally control them via apps on your phone. These make up the Internet of Things, known collectively as IoT devices. These products aren't everyone's cup of tea, but their appeal is obvious. Though they aren't essential, they do make your life easier. Smart speakers, such as Google Home or Amazon Echo, are many people's first introduction to IoT devices. You can speak to them, order products, play music, ask about the weather, but you can also link them to other devices, so you can get Alexa to turn on your air conditioning or dim the lights. As the titans of the tech industry, Google and Amazon are aware of the privacy concerns raised by the devices, so security is a consideration. It's clear, however, that privacy is not as stringent as it could be. Exploits have been revealed that allow for retrieval of recordings from these devices. Amazon themselves will review recordings systematically and have accidentally sent out the wrong customer's recordings to different customers. Recordings have shown up in court cases, and rumours persist of intelligence agencies using devices for surveillance purposes, all of which exacerbate the privacy concerns that detract from the undeniable practical value offered by these devices. Aside from the privacy concerns, security is another potential issue. While no corporation is immune from hacking, you might imagine that giants such as Google or Amazon would be close to unhackable, but you'd be wrong. Ring is an Amazon-owned smart doorbell and camera company, and there have been a spate of hackers accessing these devices. Unsuspecting consumers have placed these cameras inside their home. They are commonly placed in the bedrooms of young children, for example. When hackers have gained access to these cameras, alarmingly, they've been able to spy on children and hijack the speakers to play audio, ranging from creepy horror music to offensive language. These Ring hacks, however, aren't hacking in the truest sense of the word. These hackers didn't break into Ring servers and tunnel their way into the devices in the customers' homes, rather they just did a simple password hack. Hackers used a basic program to test extensive lists of username and associated passwords to see if they could unlock Ring accounts with connected cameras. These lists of email addresses and passwords are sourced from the horrifying number of data breaches that have befallen companies. Companies like LinkedIn, Uber, and TalkTalk have had their customer databases raided, and details such as email addresses and the passwords that go with them have been leaked. These passwords are hashed, meaning they are kind of encrypted, but almost all of them have since been decrypted. This is problematic when your account has been compromised and whatever data associated with that account has been leaked, but it becomes a much more severe issue when those login credentials have been reused elsewhere. Let's say you use one password to log into your email account, and that same email and password combination is what you use for everything. If those credentials get leaked, it has the effect of opening up all of your accounts to hackers. And that's what happened with the Ring hacks. The owners reused the passwords, and the hackers used the owner's credentials to log into their accounts. Every item that you buy is designed to turn a profit. This is news to precisely no one. Giants such as Apple, Google, and Amazon can finance security research for their products, and they do a pretty thorough job of it, because it is in their interests to avoid damaging headlines about security breaches. However, the small Chinese company that you've never heard of, that are making your cheap smart light bulbs, don't have the financial resources to do this. If the small company invests in making sure that their product is secure and shells out for ongoing support, pushing security updates to their products, then that super cheap light bulb is now far less competitively priced, and suddenly it can't compete with the big name brands. Security is almost always in direct competition with convenience. Consumers want products that are plug and play. They want things to just work. Creating accounts, setting up long complex passwords, and enabling extra security are all steps that take time and make the product less convenient and user-friendly. As a result, security vulnerabilities are all but guaranteed. Almost all IoT devices are controlled via an app on your phone. This will then send commands and receive data via the internet. This data will often pass through servers run by the manufacturer. Every device manufacturer calls out to a different server, and for each device, you need to consider how secure that server is going to be. Each server with a connection to one of your devices pokes a hole through your home network security. Every additional device increases the possible routes in for an attacker. Now, you may be of the opinion that a hacker has no reason to go after you, and odds are you're correct, to a degree. However, if a hacker discovers a vulnerability in a specific product or breaks into a specific manufacturer's server, then they might be inclined to perform a less targeted and more dragnet type of hack. A hacker could simply cast out a wide net to seek out the vulnerable devices and end up with a list of easy targets. From there, they could sell this list, pass it on to friends, or simply pick potential targets at random and see what havoc they can create. This all sounds rather alarming, but what can an intruder do? Turn up your heating? Turn on your smart coffee machine? Have your smart fridge order some milk? That would be annoying and absolutely an intrusion on your personal space, but it's not the end of the world. The much larger threat is the beachhead provided by a compromised device. If a hacker can compromise your smart coffee machine, then they have a foothold inside your home network. They can use your vulnerable device to pivot through the rest of your network, making it much easier to infiltrate other devices such as computers and smartphones. This is easier because of the implied trust within a network, the idea being that if someone is able to access your network, they are probably authorized to be controlling and accessing devices within it. However, because IoT devices are designed to receive commands from outside the network via the internet, they kind of violate the premise of this trust. If another device receives a command via your smart thermostat, for example, it has no way of knowing that it's actually from outside the network. Getting a foothold in a network doesn't then mean it's a cakewalk to take over everything else, but it certainly simplifies the process. Now, this is all rather disconcerting, but it might not be a huge surprise. For those of you who are technologically savvy and have bought smart devices, you've probably considered the potential risks and decided that the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. However, there exists a category of products that even the savviest consumer probably wouldn't consider a risk: toys. The spread of smart devices is not limited to household appliances and home entertainment technology. Plenty of children's toys are incorporating technology into their design. Our first example is the My Friend Kayla doll, discontinued in 2017. When someone speaks to Kayla, she will connect to the internet, use voice recognition software to process what was said, and then she will reply. She also has the ability to recite stories. Nothing too alarming about that, or is there? As with most IoT devices, Kayla reaches out to the internet, so she would be vulnerable to potential attacks that way, but that's no different than a budget smart bulb. Except all the more advanced functionality, that is, understanding and replying to questions, is performed by a third-party server. Kayla is just a Bluetooth speaker and microphone housed in the body of a doll. She's basically a hands-free device, like you'd use in your car. When you understand that she isn't really that much of a smart device, you can begin to understand the issues. As a parent, you can control the doll via the app, and you connect to it via Bluetooth, as you would a Bluetooth speaker. The problem is there is no authentication whatsoever, which means that anyone within range can connect, can listen in on that built-in microphone, and can play whatever they like through the doll speaker. By bringing the doll into your home, you've essentially just bugged your own house, and given quite literally anyone passing by your house a freely accessible way to listen in or scare the crap out of your kid. Looking at the doll, you just wouldn't think of it as a potential threat, but that makes it all the more sinister. The German government banned the Kayla doll, regarding it as a concealed transmitting device, and it was taken off the market shortly afterwards. It is, however, far from the only example of ill-conceived smart toys. CloudPet makes a line of soft toys that allow users to exchange messages. The child can record a message which gets sent to this parent's smartphone, and then the parent can listen to the message via the app. They can send a message back to the child via the toy. The appeal of this device is obvious. A parent working long hours can let their child know that they are thinking about them, without having to give the child a smartphone. But as you may have surmised, the system was appallingly insecure. As with the My Friend Kayla doll, the Cloud Pet could be taken over via Bluetooth, used as a remote microphone, and have doctored messages played, but the message swapping functionality offered even more vectors for attack. The messages, along with a host of personal details, were stored on unsecure servers operated by the firm. These servers were easily accessible and contained sensitive data about the customer's family, children's birthdays, email addresses, and worse still, links to saved recordings. The ability to trawl through saved recordings to or from children may not be the world's greatest security concern, but it is pretty darn sinister and creepy. So, what are consumers to do? IoT devices offer all manner of benefits, but are they worth the risk? Well, that's really only something the individual can decide, but there are a number of steps you can take to minimize the risks associated with the devices. When purchasing a device, it's probably better to stick with the name brands and companies that are well established. Because they have a public image to uphold, they are more likely to consider security and act responsibly when vulnerabilities are discovered. When you set up the devices and register the associated apps, using complex and unique passwords is an absolute must. To help manage the multiple strong passwords you should be using for all of your online accounts, use a password manager such as LastPass or Dashlane. They are incredibly helpful. Password managers store all of your passwords, and you only need to remember one password to gain access to them. The password manager companies utilize many tactics to keep your data safe, and I would argue that the utility offered by them is worth any potential risk caused by having all of your eggs in one basket. Enabling two-factor authentication is another important step. Two-factor works by requiring not only a password, but also a second authentication method, often a text message containing a code. This means that in most situations, even a hacker that has your login details still can't use them to access your account. As for the IoT devices themselves, it's important to keep them updated. Many will have an auto-update feature which should always be active, but the ones that don't will need periodic attention. Updates are of vital importance as they often include security patches, which fix newly discovered vulnerabilities. Last but by no means least, checking on your home Wi-Fi router settings can be a godsend. Many routers have file sharing capabilities and plug-and-play features that you may not be using. It's a good idea to enable all of the security features provided and turn off any features that you're not actively using. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Finding good, high-quality, natural dog treats is not always the easiest thing to do. Thankfully, poochiepacks.co.uk has got you covered. Poochie Packs has a dizzying array of all-natural treats for your canine friends, from wild boar strips to salmon sausages. My German Shepherd, Jax, is rather partial to the fish skin cubes. They even offer a monthly subscription service, so your pooch can get the highest quality treats straight to your door. Poochie Packs offers home delivery throughout the UK and free delivery on all orders over £25. For 5% off, and so they know that I sent you their way, enter the code WARD at checkout. That is WARD, W-A-R-D. You can find Poochie Packs at poochiepacks.co.uk. That is P-O-O-C-H-I-E packs.co.uk. Right, back to the show. If you're security conscious, you might have heard of VPNs, but you may not be aware of exactly what they are and whether you need one.
Look, it's me. Giving out my credit card details. Sharing my passwords with strangers. Being hackers' best friend. Your sensitive online data is just as open to snoopers on public Wi-Fi. Connect to NordVPN. Help protect your privacy and enjoy advanced internet security. Download NordVPN now. 30-day money-back guarantee.
That was an advert for NordVPN that was banned by the UK's Advertising Standards Agency on account of being misleading. Adverts for VPNs are everywhere, claiming that without them you're at risk of identity theft or being spied upon. But how accurate is that? Well, it's a bit of a half-truth. Before we get into why, we need to understand what a virtual private network, VPN, is, and how they work. Say you want to visit a webpage on your device. The device passes this request to your modem, which in turn passes it to your internet service provider, ISP, who passes it onto the internet at large, working its way through multiple servers until you reach the server that hosts the website that you're looking to access. A VPN alters this process a little. A VPN provides an encrypted tunnel for you to pass your requests through, meaning your ISP can't see what sites you visit. It also means that whatever website you're connecting to will only see your request as having come from your VPN servers, not your ISP's servers. Now, with that first non-encrypted connection, people at every stage of the connection can see what data is being sent through. People connected to the same public Wi-Fi hotspot, your internet service provider, people who run the servers that process your request. All of them. A VPN essentially prevents this. From that connection leaving your device to that request hitting the open web, your connection is encrypted. It does leave a few links in the chain with vulnerabilities, such as the servers your request gets passed through, but it eliminates a lot of the risk. Except, of course, the original example of an unencrypted connection is for the most part a thing of the past. This is all thanks to HTTPS, that little security padlock you see in your browser bar. HTTPS is a method of secure browsing that encrypts your web traffic between your browser and the end server hosting the website you're accessing. This means that your ISP or any other people between you and the website can see where you are, but not what you're doing there. They can see that you have visited Amazon, but they can't see what product you're buying. They can't see the address you're having it sent to or how you're paying for it. Not every website supports HTTPS, but ones that don't are getting harder and harder to find. Now, this doesn't mean that VPNs are useless, far from it, but it does mean that a lot of their promises of additional security are dubious at best. Most VPN adverts focus on either protecting your personal information from hackers, safeguarding your privacy, or bypassing region-restricted content on Netflix or the like. Let's start with protection of your personal details. If you're using an unsecured connection, it is perfectly possible for someone to sit somewhere on the network between your device and a website server and grab any information you enter, such as your name, address, or bank details. This person could be in a coffee shop on the same unsecured network as you. They could have hacked into one of the servers that your connection passes through to its destination, or they could have fiddled with how your connection gets routed and route it through a server they own. These attacks are broadly known as man-in-the-middle attacks. Using a VPN will protect against some of these attacks, but not all. Using a VPN will all but guarantee that someone using an unsecured coffee shop Wi-Fi will be unable to intercept your data. Attacks that are further along the network, however, are less affected by VPN usage. Once your traffic has exited the VPN servers and is in the wider internet, the VPN's encryption is no longer in effect. If someone has positioned themselves between your VPN servers and the destination server, they can still intercept the data. A VPN does somewhat anonymize your traffic, so isolating your data is more difficult, but it's far from a guarantee of safety. HTTPS fares significantly better in this test. Because HTTPS encrypts your traffic from your device all the way to the end server, anyone in between will only be able to extract encrypted data, and encrypted data is all but useless to an attacker. It appears to just be gobbledygook. HTTPS does have its flaws, and if the website server has misconfigured their security, the effectiveness of HTTPS can be reduced, but overall it does provide pretty robust protection. The next main claim of VPN providers is that of safeguarding your privacy. This claim is much more accurate. VPNs do absolutely aid in safeguarding privacy, but they are not a complete solution. To the internet at large, if your connection is coming from a VPN, your unique IP address and your ISP are hidden. You are anonymous. Your ISP can't see what sites you are visiting. Your ISP can't sell that data to companies, nor can they pass it on to the government. But you are not completely anonymous. Your VPN provider can see this information, so you need to trust them not to pass on your information. You're essentially just shifting the burden of trust onto another company. How does HTTPS measure up when it comes to protecting your privacy? HTTPS encrypts your traffic so that your ISP and intermediary servers can't view it, but they can see where you're going. So no one can see the embarrassing purchase you're making, but they can see where you're buying it from. That's no big deal if you're buying your hemorrhoid cream from an online pharmacy, but it may be if you're buying it from anusol.com. Bypassing region locks is another pillar of VPN advertising, and this is where VPNs really live up to their big claims. With most VPNs, you can choose which of the servers your connection exits from, so to whatever site you're connecting to, you'll be connecting from whatever country your chosen VPN server is in. This is very handy for streaming services such as Netflix, who, due to the licensing limitations, have different content available to different countries. If you desperately want to watch your favourite TV series, but it isn't available in your country, turn on your VPN, change your country, and suddenly it's available. Which brings us to the actual uses of a VPN in the real world. Let's get the unsavoury uses out of the way first. While using a VPN does not guarantee anonymity, they can make tracing criminal activity significantly more difficult. This means that using a VPN can help those conducting criminal activity such as hacking, scamming, or extortion to evade the authorities. On the other hand, there are numerous perfectly valid reasons to use a VPN. Around the world, there are a great many states that restrict their population's access to the internet. China is the most widely known example of this, as the Chinese government censors information sources which may contradict the Communist Party's propaganda or values. A VPN allows users facing internet restriction to bypass many of the blocks and filters, allowing them to access the internet unfettered. There are also countries and institutions where accessing certain sites can get you fired or thrown in jail or worse, executed. Visiting an atheist forum from inside a Christian boarding school might get you kicked out. Accessing a pro-LGBTQ website in Saudi Arabia can get you thrown in prison or executed. HTTPS limits the ability of such governments or institutions to see exactly what pages you are visiting and what messages you are sending, but it doesn't conceal the fact that you're visiting the sites in the first place. A VPN, however, does. With that said, whilst using a VPN does help to hide what you are doing online, it is rather obvious to anyone attempting to surveil you that you are using a VPN, which carries with it its own risks in countries where they may be banned. So that's a quick rundown of VPNs, and an examination of some of the claims made by the providers. But should you use one? Well, that really depends. If you just want to change which country's content you can access on Netflix, or like the idea of increasing your anonymity and your security, then yes, absolutely. If you've been led to believe that if you don't use one, anyone will be able to see what you do and take all of your personal information, then you can stop worrying, because that's simply not true. If you don't like the idea of government mass surveillance and prefer to safeguard against that, then a VPN is not a bad idea, but it will only help with non-targeted blanket surveillance. Realistically, if your government is wanting to surveil you in a targeted campaign, a VPN isn't going to provide much defense. If you like the podcast, you might like my YouTube channel. Find it at youtube.com/TheMediaWard. If you want to support the podcast, please rate it, subscribe, or share it with a friend. It all helps more than you might imagine. If you want to be even more amazing, perhaps you might consider supporting me on Patreon. There you'll find ad-free episodes, get access to episodes 2 weeks early, and on top of that, one extra episode every season. You'll also get access to behind-the-scenes content for the YouTube channel, such as extended cuts and bloopers. You can find me at patreon.com/TheMediaWard. I'd like to thank St. Valentine Music for providing all of the music you've heard in today's episode. For a full list of my sources, please visit the website at themediaward.co.uk. And one last thing. Pacemakers use electrical pulses to regulate a patient's heart rate, and they are activated when a problem is detected. Researchers discovered security vulnerabilities in a line of pacemaker models that would allow hackers using commercially available equipment to reprogram them. Once a hacker had control of the pacemaker, they could run the battery flat, send out unnecessary electrical pulses, or worse still, stop pulses from being given when they are needed. This led to a recall of nearly 500,000 units in the US, so that the security vulnerabilities could be patched. There were no reports of people actually breaking into the devices, but it does illustrate that sometimes security is literally a matter of life and death.